So here we are with my Davis vertical feed, and I just thought I would show you doing some work. So I'm basically joining the two sides of my cushion covers together using this machine. So the interesting thing about this machine is that what I'm going to do now is a very, very useful example of where this machine is actually really helpful. I know everyone says bindings, which is absolutely, of course, true. But we have two different fabrics with two different stretchinesses. Every single time I've tried to achieve this, sewing this, pinning it, you name it, walking foot, whatever, you always get a bit of creep. Now the neat thing about this is we should, certainly in the tests, get no creep. Now this Davis vertical feed machine is a bit of a tank. It's amazing to think that the class 15 machine was out when they were producing this in the late 1800s. So it works well. If you go any faster, the world starts shaking, so it's probably best not to go too outrageously fast. But it's on the treadle, it works well. I've been able to get the tension pretty good. I've changed the bobbin, I've tried to clean the bobbin inside of the bobbin shuttle. I've done pretty much everything I possibly can to get a perfect tension. And basically it's as good as I can get it. It's a bit irregular, which usually means that there's a bit of the bobbin doesn't spin freely within the bobbin shuttle. However, I've done everything I can to try and resolve this problem or see if it's coming from the top thread, but I just can't fix it. So the stitching is fine. So it's holding together, like it's more than adequately strong enough. It's just not a perfect stitch. So occasionally, when you're using two different color threads, the bobbin thread might show slightly on the top, and the vice versa, where you might get a bit. So let's see how this looks. So yes, it's a good stitch, but occasionally you can see the bobbin thread. So let's see if this actually shows up. What I'll do is I'll zoom out and see if we can actually get this to focus in on the stitch. No, it's not going to work. No, it's the best I can do. I can try better light and see if that works. To show you the slight imperfections in the stitch. See if that helps. Not really a lot. But the good thing is, you can see it is a perfectly good stitch, but there was no creep whatsoever, which you would expect with a vertical feed. There's no creep in the sewing. So the fact that I have sewn two different fabrics together, there is no creep. It's exactly the same length. That's where I think the Davis feed is wonderful. Beyond that, yes, it's good for bindings, it's good for walking foot, anything like that. But it's sort of a beast to sew on, and there's always do you want to sew on something? I mean, if you like sewing on a machine that's like this, it really is like sewing on a machine, whereas some of the singers are just like sewing on butter, and some of the faffs and neckies and stuff, they're just such a different experience. But I wouldn't say this is not fun. So it is, you know, it certainly sews well. It's a good experience to sew on. Works well. But it is no quiet machine, that's for sure. You can easily drive your family nuts with this, but by the same token, it's fun. So if you want sort of perfect results with no creep, then you've got your machine here, and this is a prime example of what I wanted to try it on to see what would happen when you mix two fabrics together, because this is generally the worst, where you get the most puckers and creep. But I'm getting none whatsoever on this, which is rather good. Okay, so there is no reverse on this, so you have to do it the old-fashioned way. Still works really well. Just the tire stitches in. So what I'm going to do now is cut this. You have to get used to this because I'm so used to the thread automatically releasing with the presser foot this. Now, here's a classic example of where most people would never do this, but I'm going to do it because it'll be fun. So what I'm doing is sewing from the bottom to the top. Now, normally you would get creep, so that what would happen by the time you get to the top, you're going to end up with a mess. So just for the fun of it, I'm going to try this. What I'm going to do is make sure this is perfectly laid out first, and then we will put a few stitches down, do the back tacking, and go again. So, all being well, if I've done this correctly, and it looks like it, you lay the fabric out perfectly, so it's lined up. You'll see I'm using the magnetic seam guide to make sure I'm at 5/8, so I get perfect results. And by all calculations, this should give absolutely perfect results without any puckering whatsoever, which would be rather lovely. There's no point in having a needle feed machine if you can't guarantee that you're gonna not get puckering. There we are, coming to the end, and not a sign of pucker. So I was right. It did exactly what I would hope it would do perfectly well. So, top points to that experience. And pretty good stitching. The odd green thread showing through from the bottom, and a little bit of the red thread from the top, but the stitches are tight, so once you turn it around, it's going to be no problem whatsoever, so it's perfect. So, not an ounce of creep anywhere on that in any of the sewing, which is good, because that's what you'd hope. That's very often what you get, is the creep. And this makes sure there is no creep, so when I turn this around, I should get absolutely flawless pillowcase. With no puckers, which is usually my biggest problem. I haven't trimmed the corners, so there are no flaws anywhere in my sewing, and I must admit, puckers and seam creep is my biggest sin. So I'm very happy with that. Beautiful result sewing. So I can forgive its slight imperfections in stitching, and I will keep trying to perfect that by changing the bobbins more, change the bobbin case. Hopefully I'm going to change this to a short shuttle. I'm going to try all sorts of things just to see if I can get perfect tension. But I am using, not that it's made any difference, I am using the newer type needles because you just can't get the long needles for this type of machine anymore, so you have to use these industrial MTX 190s. So I've got a size 14 in this at the moment, and no surprise, it's working perfectly. So great, I'm very happy with that, and I hope you enjoyed that. I shall hopefully one day produce another video again on my next project. So thank you very much.